Deciding to frame the poor bride, the wealthy parents of the groom slipped some missing watches into her pocket, and when the bride began to speak, the rich folks nearly turned gray. Martin was born and raised in a wealthy family. From a young age, he knew that when he grew up, he would continue the family business that his grandmother, Augustina, had founded. It all started with a single bakery that the woman opened in the capital after inheriting from a wealthy uncle. Augustina proved to be a great businesswoman, and now she owned a whole chain of bakeries that were popular not only in the capital but also in other cities. Both of Martin's parents worked in the business, and they had prepared an important role for him. The boy, who loved to travel, was meant to find suitable locations for new bakeries in the most remote corners of the country and eventually abroad. Martin eagerly awaited the end of university so he could start this coveted job. Yes, he loved visiting different places and discovering something new day by day. When Martin finally defended his thesis and received his diploma, he immediately began packing his suitcase. He decided to head to the southern coast to scout the area. Martin could already picture how beautiful bakeries with charming signs would open on the lovely promenades of small seaside towns, attracting the attention of locals and tourists alike. The entire drive, sitting behind the wheel of an expensive car, he imagined the most colorful scenarios. In the evening, when he arrived in one of the resort towns, he checked into a hotel, took a shower, and fell into a deep sleep, exhausted from the long trip. The next morning, Martin woke up quite early, feeling well rested. He decided to head into town for breakfast at a cafe. As soon as he stepped outside, he was enchanted by the streets and especially the promenade, which was just a 5-minute walk from his hotel. The sea gently washed the golden sandy beach, and the bright houses with red-tiled roofs added a special charm to the town. The streets were lush with greenery, along the sidewalks grew lush bushes and exotic plants, their flowers filling the air with a sweet fragrance. Soft rays of the morning sun broke through the light haze of the milky fog. Martin walked along the cobblestone streets, still holding the coolness of dawn, breathing in the fresh and invigorating air. Along the way, he admired the windows of the small shops where local artisans displayed their creations, ceramics, glass home decor, clothing, and jewelry. Along the streets, stalls selling fruits and fresh seafood were already opening, attracting the attention of the few passers-by with their bright splashes of color. Martin enjoyed the atmosphere of tranquility and serenity. It was so unlike the noise of the capital. Soon, he found a small cafe with a terrace draped in greenery. It was located at the corner of a quiet square, in the center of which stood an ancient clock tower. Martin chose a table outside under a vine-covered awning and ordered breakfast, fresh croissants with jam and aromatic espresso. While waiting for his order, the young man observed the waking life of the town, how the first passers-by greeted each other with smiles, how small children, out for a walk with their mothers, tossed pebbles into the fountain, and how elderly couples strolled slowly along the sea. Then Martin turned and suddenly noticed a young girl about his age sitting at one of the tables. She immediately caught his attention with her unusual aura. She had straight, shiny hair cascading down her bare shoulders. The girl wore a bandeau top and tattered, ripped blue jeans. She was bent over a book lying on the table in front of her, occasionally sipping lemonade through a straw. Martin craned his neck to get a better look at the stranger. He noticed that her sneakers were quite worn. She doesn't seem very wealthy, he thought to himself. This notion was confirmed by her old black backpack hanging on the back of her chair. However, Martin was never a snob, and the social status of people didn't concern him much. He always believed that what mattered most was the person, not the thickness of their wallet. The boy never bragged about his family belonging to a relatively affluent class. Martin noticed that the book the girl was reading was very thick and, apparently, quite ancient. Suddenly, he wished that the stranger would casually look up and catch his gaze. Then he could start a conversation with her. But the girl was immersed in her reading, completely detached from the surrounding reality, as if she were in a parallel dimension. Martin saw her occasionally making notes in the margins of the book with a pencil and smiling softly, as if she were reading something very personal and dear. Her mysterious smile, reminiscent of those seen in the paintings of Renaissance artists, only fueled the young man's interest. Martin caught himself wanting to learn more about her and what she was reading. He continued to watch the stranger from a distance, wondering what stories were hidden within the pages of her book. Suddenly, another young girl burst into the cafe. Noticing the girl with the book, she smiled happily and headed towards her table. "Camila, there you are," she exclaimed. The girl Martin had been observing for so long jumped and finally tore her gaze away from the slightly yellowed page. "Anna," she smiled. Her face lit up as if the sun had suddenly come out from behind a cloud. Martin felt his heart skip a beat. The girls began chatting animatedly, and the young man couldn't take his eyes off Camila. At one point, she caught his gaze and quickly smiled at him. Martin realized this was his chance. Gathering his courage, he stood up from his table and approached the girls, saying, "Excuse me, ladies, could you help me, please?" The girls looked at the young man with interest and a bit of confusion. "May I join you at your table?" Martin asked politely. Anna nodded, while Camila only frowned in response. Martin sat down and introduced himself. Anna introduced herself and her friend. Is she pretending to be mute? Martin thought with annoyance about Camila, but quickly tried to shake off that thought. "The thing is," the young man began with a smile, "I came here in search of a good location for a family bakery. However, I don't know the town at all. I thought you both were locals, so I decided to ask for your help." He smiled shyly again and added, "Of course, if you have the time and inclination." Anna and Camila exchanged glances. "That sounds very interesting. I think I could walk with you along the promenade and through the central streets and show you some nice spots," Anna said. Martin bit his lip, looking at Camila. "And you?" he asked, holding his breath. Camila shrugged. "Well, I'm preparing for a seminar," she muttered. Anna looked at her with an expressive gaze. "But it's still more than a week away, isn't it?" she said. "When did you become such a bookworm?" "You know I love history," Camila retorted. It was clear she wasn't very interested in walking with a stranger. "Come on, don't be such a bore," Anna exclaimed. "Our city guest needs help." Camila shrugged again and ran her fingertips over the cover of her book, clearly showing that she was willing to do a favor. This somewhat hurt Martin, but he was glad that Camila would still join them. When the waiter brought Anna her coffee in a paper cup, the three of them left the cafe. "Don't worry," the girl assured Martin energetically as they stepped outside. "We'll find the perfect spot for your bakery." Martin smiled and thanked Anna, noticing that Camila had once again remained silent. It was evident that she was being cautious around him, unwilling to let him into her world. This affected the young man. He wanted to know more about her. They walked around the city for a long time, and as a result, Martin noted down several suitable addresses in his notebook. Additionally, he learned almost everything about Anna and very little about Camila. During the entire walk, she had said no more than 5 sentences. When they grew tired and hungry, Martin invited the girls to a cozy cafe nearby, but Camila said she needed to go home. After kissing Anna goodbye, she ran off, holding the book against her chest. Martin sighed and headed to the cafe with her friend. "Don't mind Camila," Anna tried to reassure the young man. "She's always so withdrawn with strangers." Martin said nothing in response. "There's a concert at the promenade tomorrow," Anna continued. "Camila and I are going. If you want, come along." Martin said he loved music very much, and it was true. He had lunch with Anna and they sat at the table for a little while longer before he returned to the hotel. On the way, he couldn't get Camila out of his mind. "I'll see her at the concert tomorrow," Martin decided. "Maybe she'll be friendlier with me." Busy with his tasks, he eagerly awaited the next evening. Time dragged slowly, but Martin tried not to think about Camila. He called the owners of the premises and inquired about the rental conditions. This distracted him from his personal troubles. The next day, Martin shaved smoothly, put on a clean, well-pressed shirt, and headed to the concert. Anna was already waiting for him at the entrance. The band, composed of local musicians, was on stage tuning their instruments. Camila was nowhere to be seen. Is she really not coming? Martine thought disappointedly. Camila is running late, Anna said, as if she had heard his thoughts. More and more people gathered around the stage. There were locals who had come to unwind from their daily worries and tourists eager to enjoy live music. The musicians played the first chords, and at that moment, Martine noticed Camila making her way through the crowd. She looked so fragile that his heart ached. When the girl caught Martine's gaze, her eyes sparkled with joy for a moment, and her face lit up with a slight smile. However, just a moment later, it vanished, as if Camila had put on an impenetrable mask again. "Oh, Camila!" Anna exclaimed, noticing her friend. "Finally! The concert has already started." The girl hugged her. "Sorry, Anna. I rushed as fast as I could. You know I would never miss a performance by my favorite band." Anna smiled playfully. "Of course, because Juan is singing in it." With those words, the girl winked at Camila. Her playful tone did not escape Martine's notice. He looked carefully at Camila, who turned away shyly. Martine felt a pang of jealousy. Who is this Juan? Her boyfriend, he wondered to himself. He looked at the stage just as a tall, tanned young man approached the microphone. He greeted the crowd, then closed his eyes and began to sing. Martine noted that Juan had a beautiful soft voice with a slight rasp. He felt the crowd freeze, hanging on every word of the soloist. Martine glanced secretly at Camila. She was gazing intently at the stage, swaying slightly to the rhythm of the music. The boy nearly let out an exasperated grunt. In that moment, he felt a light touch. Someone brushed against his palm. Martine looked down and saw it was Anna. He looked into her eyes and realized she wouldn't mind if he took her hand. That's all I need, Martine thought in despair. He averted his gaze and tried to distance himself, but Anna was too close, and the crowd pressed in on them from all sides. He had to accept it. I'll need to explain to Anna after the concert that nothing can happen between us, the boy decided. However, the songs kept changing, creating an increasingly romantic atmosphere. Martine could feel Anna's breath on his neck. Let's dance, she whispered softly. Martine didn't know what to do. He shook his head shyly and decided it would be better to leave. Apologizing to Anna, he said he wasn't feeling well and began to push his way through the crowd. The girl looked after him, bewildered. Martine walked home, cursing everything in the world, his impulse to go to the concert to see Camila, the romantic songs of the soloist, and himself. What was I thinking? Martine repeated to himself over and over. A beautiful girl like Camila can't be alone. Of course, she must have a boyfriend. He remembered Anna's gaze, and it made him feel awkward again. The girl was also very beautiful, but not to his taste. Moreover, for some reason, Martine couldn't stop thinking about the reclusive and reserved Camila. The next day, the young man went to meet with the owner of the premises he had chosen for his future bakery. It turned out to be a cheerful elderly man. He offered very favorable terms for the deal. Martine gladly signed the contract, and he and the elderly gentleman shared a cup of cappuccino to seal their business, yet friendly agreement. Martine was in a very good mood as he walked back to the hotel. He decided he would head to the neighboring city the next day to search for the next premises for the bakery there. Lost in his thoughts, the boy didn't notice how the sky had become overcast with clouds and only came to when he heard the first rumble of thunder. He looked up just as a bright purple lightning bolt flashed above him. Thunder rumbled again. Martine realized a terrible downpour was about to break, and he hurried to take shelter under the awning of the nearest cafe. Not a minute had passed before water poured from the sky like from a bucket. Passers-by shouted and screamed as they fled for cover. The promenade emptied in the blink of an eye. Just then, Martine noticed a solitary figure of a girl running in the rain. He realized it was Camila as soon as she darted under the awning where he stood. The girl was soaked through, and water streamed from her hair. Martine noticed that Camila was shivering from the cold, and he quickly took off his shirt, which he usually wore over his t-shirt. "Put this on, or you'll catch a cold," Martine said, extending it to the girl. Camila cast a distrustful glance at him but took the shirt. It was so large that Camila wrapped herself in it easily, like in a light blanket. The downpour showed no sign of stopping. Martine and Camila remained silent for a long time, watching the water stream down the neat tiles of the sidewalk. Suddenly, Camila gasped. "What happened?" asked Martine, alarmed. "My purse," Camila said. "I think I left it on the bench when the rain suddenly started pouring." With those words, the girl looked anxiously into Martine's eyes. "Where is that bench?" He responded instantly. "Next to the big dolphin-shaped fountain," Camila replied shyly. "But you shouldn't." She didn't have time to finish. Martin dashed out from under the awning and plunged into the downpour. Soaked in an instant, he quickly stopped noticing the cold. He spotted the fountain the girl had mentioned and knew exactly where it was. In less than 5 minutes, Martin noticed it, along with a bright red handbag that sat lonely on the bench. He grabbed it and rushed back. "You're completely soaked," Camila said quietly as Martin handed her the handbag. "I couldn't do otherwise," the guy replied simply. "Check if everything's all right?" Camila peered into the handbag and sighed with relief. "Yes, everything's here. The phone and wallet didn't even get wet." Martin smiled. "I'm glad I made it in time." He turned to note that the downpour showed no signs of stopping. "Thank you," Camila whispered, her face lighting up with a smile. It was so wonderful that Martin would have been willing to run back and forth for the handbag under the icy rain 5 more times just to experience that again. "You're right, I'm all wet. And so are you. Let's go inside and get something hot to drink." Camila nodded. "I love cocoa," she suddenly confessed. "That's wonderful," Martin smiled. They entered the cafe and sat at a table by the window, miraculously still available. Martin ordered cocoa for Camila and cappuccino for himself. The waiter was kind enough to bring Camila a warm blanket. The young people enjoyed their hot drinks and engaged in a leisurely conversation. Martin was pleased to see the girl gradually opening up to him, and he felt that true treasures were hidden deep within her soul. "It's a shame I'm leaving tomorrow, and that she already has a boyfriend," Martin thought sadly. He felt very good in Camila's company. They talked about her studies, history, and literature. The girl shared that she lived with her mother and grandmother Maria, while Martin told her about the places he had been to. "What are you doing tomorrow?" Camila asked at last. "Tomorrow?" Martin echoed, unsure how to say that he was leaving. "There will be an opening of an exhibition at noon, where my painting will be presented," the girl explained shyly. "So you still paint?" Martin was surprised. "A little," Camila admitted. "When I have free time." Martin thought for a moment, then nodded resolutely. "I will come," he said. He decided he could postpone his departure for one day. He was eager to see the painting the girl had created. When the rain let up, Martin called a taxi for Camila so she wouldn't have to walk home, and he set off for the hotel, which was not far away. Upon entering his room, the young man immediately headed for the shower. As Martin stood under the hot water, he remembered that Camila had forgotten to return his shirt. This thought made him smile warmly. "Tomorrow I'll see her again," he whispered aloud. In his dreams, Martin walked along the promenade with Camila, singing her beautiful serenades. The next day, closer to noon, the young man put on a fresh shirt and left the house. He quickly found the right address and entered a small but cozy hall where art lovers had already gathered. Martin had never been particularly interested in art, but finding himself among the canvases, most of which depicted the sea, he felt something special. Searching for Camila with his eyes, but not finding her, Martin began to wander along the walls, admiring the paintings. One canvas caught his attention, depicting a seagull in flight. The painting was filled with bright colors, and Martin felt a wonderful sense of freedom as he gazed at it. Stepping closer, the young man noticed the signature, Camilla. At that moment, he felt a weightless touch and turned around. Standing before Martin was Camilla. She wore a pink silk jumpsuit with ruffles at the chest, and her eyes sparkled. "Hi, Martin," she said softly. "Hi, Camilla," the young man replied. "Is this your painting?" The girl silently nodded in response. "It's amazing." "I'm astounded by your talent," Martin said sincerely. "Thank you, that means a lot to me," Camilla replied. At that moment, the official part of the exhibition began, during which the artists came to the center and shared the stories behind their masterpieces. Camilla shared hers as well. Martin listened, breathless. Much of what the girl said resonated within him. As Camilla neared the end of her speech, the young man felt someone approach and stand beside him. Turning, he saw a tall, dark-skinned guy in a white shirt and blue jeans, and he immediately recalled that this was Juan, the band's lead singer. And Camilla's boyfriend. Martin thought bitterly. When the girl returned to her place, her eyes shining, Juan warmly hugged and congratulated her. Martin's mood darkened. "Oh, I forgot to introduce you," Camilla exclaimed, not noticing Martin's state. "I'm Juan," the guy immediately said, extending his hand to the young man. "Camilla and I have been friends since childhood." "Yes, Juan and I are like brother and sister," Camilla chimed in happily. When Martin heard these words, he felt a wave of relief. "So they're just old friends," he deduced. The young man introduced himself and shook hands with Juan. "Nice to meet you," Juan said. "Are you an artist too?" Martin shook his head. "No, I'm a businessman." "We have a family business," he said. "A chain of bakeries across the country. One is opening in our town soon," Camilla added. Juan laughed. "Wonderful. Now I'll know where to find you." Martin and Camilla laughed too. Juan turned out to be a very pleasant and easygoing person. Martin no longer felt jealous of Camilla toward him. "Where's Anna?" Juan suddenly asked in surprise. "Why didn't she come?" Camilla's expression grew sad. "I don't know," she shrugged. "After your concert, she didn't call or write to me. When I sent her an invitation to the exhibition, she didn't respond." Martin sensed that the matter was likely about him, but he remained silent. He didn't want to become the reason for a rift between two old friends, but he couldn't help it. Apparently, Anna had taken a liking to him, and she realized he was interested in Camilla, not her. The young people chatted for a while longer, and then Juan said he had to go for a rehearsal. He hugged Camilla, shook hands with her companion, and left. "Are you hungry?" Martin asked Camilla. She nodded. "A little," she whispered. "Then let's go somewhere," the young man suggested. "I'm so hungry I could eat a whole elephant." Camilla laughed and nodded in agreement. They found a cozy little restaurant by the sea and ordered mussels and cream sauce and lemonade. "Camilla, I need to tell you something," Martin began. The girl looked attentively at the young man, waiting for his words. "Tomorrow, I plan to leave for the neighboring town," he said. "I need to look for the next location for the bakery." As he said this, Martin noticed Camilla flinch and tense up. "But he continued, trying to express his feelings. "I don't want us to part forever. I like you, and I would like to keep in touch." "But how?" Camilla asked in surprise. "If you leave." "I'll be back," Martin said firmly. "As soon as I finish my business. I like your town. And I want to stay here for good." He noticed the girl's shoulders relax. "Okay," she nodded. "I think I'll need about 2 weeks," Martin said. Camilla smiled. "Then I'll wait for you." Martin did not deceive the girl. In each city, he tried to find a suitable location as quickly as possible, and he managed to finish all his business in 10 days. After that, Martin, as if on wings, rushed to Camilla's town and rented a small studio in the city center. After unpacking his suitcase and taking a shower, his phone rang. It was his mom. She was asking how Martin was doing and when he planned to come back home. The young man replied that he had other plans. "You decided to stay living by the sea?" his mom exclaimed. "But why? That's almost the same as living in a village." "How do you know?" Martin asked angrily in response. He didn't like his mother's condescending tone. "How could I not know if we used to live there too?" his mom replied. "What?" Martin didn't believe her. "Yes, I spent my childhood where you are now," his mom said. "But why have you never told me about this?" Martin was surprised. "Because I don't like to think about it," his mom admitted. "I'm happy that your grandmother Augustine have found a way to get out of there. Now we have everything, but back then we lived like beggars." "Is that so?" Martin couldn't believe her words. He had never thought about what life was like before his grandmother Augustina started her business. "So come back from there as soon as possible," his mom continued to insist. "You have nothing to do there." Martin bit his lip. He wanted to tell his mom about Camilla, but now he decided that it wasn't the best idea. "Mom, I want to stay here a little longer and rest," he said, and said goodbye. After that, he sent Camilla a message that he had returned to the city and wanted to see her. She replied with an agreement. The young people started spending a lot of time together. They went to the movies, strolled through parks, and swam in the sea. It was a wonderful time, and Martin realized that he had fallen completely and irrevocably in love. Camilla seemed to share his feelings. She invited Martin to her home to introduce him to her mother and grandmother. As the young man had suspected, they lived modestly. The women had a tiny house that contained only the essentials. On a small plot of land, they grew potatoes and other vegetables. However, this didn't bother Martin. He realized that he loved Camilla and wanted to be with her. Day by day, the young people grew closer, and finally, Martin decided to confess his love to Camilla. She replied that she had also fallen in love with him. Martin was over the moon with happiness. "I'm ready to propose to Camilla," he decided. The young man went to a jewelry store located in the city center to choose a ring for his beloved. He didn't find it immediately, but when he saw a thin, elegant ring with a beautiful stone, he knew it was the one. "Camilla will be thrilled," Martin exclaimed and bought the ring. The next day at sunset, Martin and Camilla set out to sea on a yacht. The young man played beautiful music and, kneeling down, proposed to his beloved. Camilla was touched by the words Martin spoke from his heart. "I fell in love with you at first sight. I love your fragility and spontaneity, your focus and love for freedom. I'm in awe of every part of you and want you to be my eternity." Camilla was on the verge of tears, but managed to say, "Yes, my love, I agree to be your wife." Martin picked Camilla up and kissed her tenderly. Now the hardest part remained, telling their parents that they had decided to get married. Camilla's mother and grandmother were happy that the girl had found her happiness. However, Martin's parents and grandmother were not aware. Martin decided that he and Camilla would go to them together and tell them everything. "What if they don't like me?" Camilla worried as they got into Martin's car, and he started the engine. "How could anyone not like you?" the young man asked, genuinely surprised. "You are perfection itself." Camilla smiled upon hearing these words. "Do you really think so?" she asked. "Of course," Martin replied with a smile. "I realized that the moment I saw you." Camilla shook her head in disbelief. "Even when I didn't want to talk to you?" she clarified, doubt in her voice. "Even then," Martin admitted. "Anna told me that you're afraid of unfamiliar people, and that's completely normal." Camilla bit her lip. "Yes," she nodded. "My grandmother Maria taught me not to trust anyone. Not even the closest people." "But why?" Martin was surprised. "Once she got really burned. Since then, she has been very cautious in her interactions," the girl confessed, but didn't go into details. Martin understood that it was not worth asking about anything. For a while, they both were silent, watching the road. What about me? Martin suddenly asked. What? Camilla didn't understand. Do you trust me? The young man smiled. Camilla gently covered his hand with hers. Yes, she nodded, and Martin felt very good inside. The young people had an unforgettable time on the road. They stopped at beautiful places and took photos as mementos. By the time they reached their destination, they were tired but very happy. The next day, Martin arranged for their parents and grandmother to have lunch together at a restaurant. Camilla was very nervous before the meeting. In the morning, she and Martin went shopping and bought the girl a beautiful silk dress and high-heeled shoes. You are pure charm, the young man said when he saw the girl in her new outfit. Camilla shyly thanked him for the compliment. When they entered the restaurant, everyone was looking at them. Camilla and Martin made a very beautiful couple. However, the girl was trembling, scared to meet his parents and grandmother. Her anxiety was not unfounded. As soon as Martin's mom saw Camilla, she pursed her lips and refused to greet her. Grandmother Augustina also scrutinized her grandson's bride, and her face became very pale for some reason. Martin's father behaved very arrogantly. Camilla felt like sinking into the ground. In the middle of lunch, she began to feel unwell, and Martin, noticing this, apologized to his family and took the girl home. I don't know what got into them, he admitted before leaving. It's nothing serious, Camilla smiled weakly. They don't know me at all. Exactly, Martin nodded. But they will, and everything will be fine. However, when he returned to the restaurant, his parents pounced on him. Who is that girl? She's not good enough for you, his mother exclaimed right away. I won't tolerate her in my family. She just wants your money, his father added. Only Grandma Augustina remained silent. However, Martin wasn't sure if Camilla would appeal to her. Grandma had her own thoughts but was in no hurry to share them with others. I love Camilla and I will be with her, Martin cut in, looking at his parents. We're getting married in a month. And I hope that during this time you will change your opinion about my fiancée. However, that did not happen. Every time Martin's parents found a reason to criticize Camilla. They didn't like how she dressed, how she spoke, and how she behaved. Martin was already tired of arguing with them, but he had no intention of giving up. If my parents don't accept Camilla, it doesn't change anything, he decided to himself. Camilla often cried after meetings with his parents. She was very sensitive. Martin did his best to comfort her. He decided that after the wedding they would return to Camilla's seaside town and live there, far from his parents. Even if my father cuts me off from the family business and money, I'll find another job, and we will still be together, Martin said to Camilla. She looked at him with fear and hope. Don't be afraid, my love. I won't leave you, and everything will be fine. Camilla trusted Martin as she trusted herself. Her mother, Grandma Maria, and Juan were supposed to come to the wedding. They arrived in town a week before the celebration to help Camilla prepare and stayed at a nearby hotel. The wedding day was rapidly approaching. Camilla had already chosen her dress, shoes, and accessories, and everything suited her perfectly. You will be the most beautiful bride in the world, her mother told her. Finally, the wedding day arrived. Camilla and her mother were changing in the dressing room, while Grandma Maria and Juan entered the beautiful hall where the ceremony was to take place. Martin, noticing them, hurried to meet them. I'll introduce you to my family, he said, leading them deeper into the hall. However, when they got closer and greeted each other, Camilla's grandmother suddenly felt unwell. She averted her eyes, not wanting to look at anyone. Concerned, Juan led Maria outside to take her home. Meanwhile, Camilla's mother was helping the bride put on her veil. Martin's mother entered the small dressing room. Oh, here you are, she said in such a sweet voice that Camilla flinched. She couldn't believe that Martin's mother could speak to her in such a friendly tone. Something's not right here, the girl thought. You look wonderful, Camilla, Martin's mother said, stepping closer to hug her. Camilla hesitantly allowed her to do so. After that, Martin's mother apologized, saying that guests were waiting for her, and left the dressing room. Camilla watched her in astonishment. And what was that? She didn't understand. Her own mother just shrugged. She was still busy with her outfit. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door, and the women heard Juan's voice. "Grandma Maria is feeling unwell," he said. Camilla clutched her heart and rushed to open the door. "Where is she?" she asked. "I took her to the hotel and called a doctor. They arrived very quickly and gave her a sedative. Grandma Maria fell asleep right away. The doctor said she would sleep until the evening. After the ceremony, I will go to be with her." "But what happened?" Camilla exclaimed in despair. She saw the whole situation as a bad omen. "I don't know what happened either," Juan shrugged. "We went to meet your fiancé's parents and grandma. And then..." She turned pale and almost fainted when she saw them. Grandma Maria kept repeating something about betrayal the whole way. Camilla's mother turned pale upon hearing these words. "You said betrayal, Juan?" she asked. "Yes, exactly," he nodded. "But when did she feel unwell?" Camilla's mother inquired. "She seemed to clutch her heart when she saw Senor Augustina, Martin's grandmother," Juan recalled. "Augustina?" Camilla's mother gasped, and the daughter turned to her. "Mom, what does this mean?" She didn't understand. The woman cast a serious glance at her daughter. "Sit down, dear," she said. "I need to tell you something." When Camilla entered the hall, her face was very pale. However, despite this, the girl looked beautiful, and Martin was breathless when he saw her in her wedding dress. Camilla, on Juan's arm, walked to the altar, and the ceremony began. However, just as the young couple was about to make their vows, Martin's mother rose from her seat. "Help!" she exclaimed loudly across the hall. "We've been robbed." "What?" Martin couldn't believe his ears. There was an uproar, but everyone fell silent when the groom's mother continued. "Your father's gold watch has been stolen." After these words, Martin's father stood up and showed everyone his empty wrist. "This can't be," Martin replied. "Dad, you must have just dropped them somewhere." "I'm sure I didn't," Martin's mother replied venomously. Meanwhile, the father slapped his forehead. "I think I left them in the dressing room when I changed my suit. We were the first to arrive, and no one was there yet." With these words, he ran out of the hall. "This is not the time for that, Dad," Martin wanted to shout, but didn't have the chance. "Let's wait for him," the groom's mother pleaded. About 5 minutes passed, and Martin's father returned to the hall. "They're not there," he exclaimed. Martin rolled his eyes. "Then you lost them somewhere else." "Can we continue the ceremony?" he asked, looking worriedly at his pale bride. It seemed Camilla was about to faint. "Not at all," Martin's mother exclaimed aggressively. "I'm sure this is not a coincidence. Your fiancé stole the watch." Martin couldn't believe what he was hearing. "What? Mom, are you serious right now?" he asked. Camilla staggered, and the young man took her hand to calm her down a bit. "Check it out," the woman insisted. Martin wished he could sink into the ground. "I'm not going to do that," he replied defiantly. "Then I will," shouted Martin's mother, darting towards the bride. She slipped her fingers behind Camilla's waist and triumphantly raised something above her head. The watch sparkled in the woman's hand. Martin couldn't believe his eyes. "This can't be," he exclaimed, bewildered. "Camilla wouldn't steal." Yet the facts prove otherwise. She hid the watch in her beautiful wedding dress. How shameless. She could have had everything just by being your wife. But that wasn't enough for her. "Shut up!" Camilla suddenly yelled, losing her patience. Martin and everyone present looked at her in astonishment. "If there are any thieves here, it's definitely not me," the girl continued angrily. "If you want to know about the real crime, ask Senora Augustina." "What?" Martin's mother squeaked. "How dare you slander my elderly mother, you filthy beggar!" Martin shifted his gaze from one woman to the other, not knowing what to think. I'm not lying. Many years ago, your mother stole something valuable from my grandmother that allowed her to start her business and live in luxury until old age. Everyone in the hall froze. Martin stepped closer and hugged Camilla. My dear, what are you saying? He whispered in her ear. The truth, the girl replied. You need to calm down. Martin tried to ease the conflict. I can't be calm when I'm being accused of something I didn't do, Camilla retorted. Martin held her tightly. You're just very upset. Martin's words only angered Camilla more. Just like my grandmother, who felt unwell when she saw the woman who betrayed her many years ago. Who are you talking about? Martin asked, astonished. Your grandmother Augustina. But, the young man stammered, ruffling his hair. If you don't believe me, ask her. Camilla replied defiantly. Martin turned to his grandmother. A question was written on his face. Grandma Augustina stood up. Mom, don't listen, Martin's mother began, but the old woman silenced her with a gesture. This girl is telling the truth, she said. We were best friends with her grandmother. And what happened then? The shocked Martin asked. Augustina's eyes darkened, and she began her story. We were both poor and rented an apartment together. We dreamed of wealth and travel, but didn't know how it would be possible for us. Then Maria suggested we buy lottery tickets. It became a tradition. Every Friday after work, we bought tickets and eagerly awaited Sunday morning to find out the results. Yes, we had an old black and white TV back then. One Sunday, Maria's daughter woke up with a fever, and she was sitting by her bed while I was watching the drawing, marking the numbers on our tickets. And Camilla's grandmother's ticket turned out to be a winner? Martin guessed. Exactly. When I saw that Maria's ticket won, I immediately realized that the money should be mine. I couldn't just swap the ticket because Maria always bought the ticket with the number 88. That was her lucky number. I, on the other hand, loved 13. That's how we distinguished our tickets. Therefore, the only thing I could do was steal the ticket. While Maria was sitting with her sick girl, I quickly packed my suitcase, took my daughter, and ran away. Martin was stunned. He couldn't believe his old grandmother was capable of such a vile act. Grandma, how could you? Old Augustina just shook her head. I don't justify myself. My actions are terrible. But that's why you are rich now. Perhaps you should be grateful, grandson. Martin just shook his head, still not believing what he had heard. And now I need to go home, Grandma added. I'm very tired. I'll see you home, Mom, Martin's mother quickly said. When they left, a tense silence hung in the hall. No one knew what to do. Everyone felt very awkward. Camilla couldn't take it anymore and started to cry. Martin gently hugged her and suggested postponing the wedding. The girl silently nodded. When they returned home, Camilla said she wanted to go back to the sea. Then let's have the wedding there. Martin proposed. Let it be modest, with only our dearest guests. Camilla, feeling relieved, simply nodded in agreement. The next day, they left, and a week later, they married by the sea. Martin left the family business and found another job. He and Camilla settled in a small house near her family and often visited her mother and grandmother.